Hi, I'm Tom Doyle, Associate Professor of Justice and Interim Director of the Fox Rothschild Center for Law and Society here at Community College of Philadelphia. Welcome to our Perspective series on CCP TV, the educational channel of Community College of Philadelphia. In this episode, Adjunct Professor David Trevaskis interviews Dr. William King. Dr. King is a pediatrician who is an anti-violence activist and a board member of Physicians for Social Responsibility. Please enjoy what I'm sure you'll find to be a very interesting and informative conversation.
Welcome to the Fox Rothschild Center for Law and Society's Perspective series on CCP TV, the educational channel of the Community College of Philadelphia. I'm David Trevaskis, Adjunct Professor in the Paralegal Studies program here at the college. Today it's my pleasure to introduce our distinguished guest, Dr. William King. Dr. King is a pediatrician with an office in West Philadelphia. He is also a board member of Physicians for Social Responsibility. So, Dr. King, welcome.
Thank you. I really appreciate the invitation.
Can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you ended up having an office in West Philadelphia?
Well, it's a roundabout story. I was actually raised in Michigan, near Michigan State, and spent later time near the end of high school in California, in Northern California, and then was a good student and studied hard and was able to make that transition from being a kid that wasn't sure what I wanted to do to knowing that I had a love of science. So I knew I was going into science, and I had the opportunity to go to Stanford and got very involved in politics. So Stanford at the time, this was in the mid 80s to late 80s, was part of, there were two kind of political movements going on college campuses, and we were very involved with two different activities that were going on. One was the South Africa divestment movement, trying to get South Africa, and the other one was a great books, trying to get diversity in great books. So I had spent my time divided between running to the lab to do biochemistry and DNA experiments, and then running outside to organize protests and meet with faculty and go to committee meetings. And what I realized with those changes was that I couldn't do both of those things well. I liked working with people. I liked making a difference, and I liked science. And so where I thought I was going to be in the lab or on the street, I found that what I wanted to do was work with people with science, and then chose medicine. So from there, I graduated from Stanford and had a great time. Knocked heads with Condoleezza Rice. She was the provost at Stanford.
Oh my goodness.
At the time. And she is a formidable woman. And we did a lot of protesting, but she's the one who made the changes. So from there went to Duke, actually, your alma mater, for a year, and actually did a lot of rabble rousing and science. And so I was still working as a laboratory scientist, had been at NIH before, was working in labs, and then was running up and down the East Coast, going to talk to the students at Harvard and Duke and Morehouse and all around on the weekends.
And so at this time you were doing straight science?
Well, I was working as a lab technician, so being just working in the lab, helping get some research done, but also applying to med school because I knew I wanted to go to med school at that point.
And you had made the transition to the East Coast?
Yeah, my family is actually from the East Coast, from Newark, New Jersey, and from Washington D.C. and from New York City. So I had not lived on the East Coast, and I used that opportunity to reconnect.
And so for medical school, where did you end up going?
Went to Yale.
Okay.
Yep. And because once you get in that door, the door's open. And so we didn't have a lot of resources. I didn't know I was poor, but we were not very well off. But by the time I became a high school student, I could see that I am not going to be muscling my way out of poverty. I'm not going to be hustling my way out of poverty. Once I was a good student, then I could get into a place like Stanford. And once you get into a place like Stanford, you can get into a place anywhere. Mm-hmm. So then to Yale.
And so you go through your medical schooling. When did you decide that you wanted to focus on working with kids?
I didn't think I wanted to work with kids. I just knew I wanted to work with people. I knew I loved science and was good at understanding how the body worked, how science works, and had worked with people and wanted to really make a difference with science. So at Yale, I actually worked with a lot of student organizations and student groups, and worked with a professor, James Comer, who is well-renowned across the country for working with what they call town and gown. So he really helped. He's a child psychiatrist and applied the principles of child psychiatry to helping kids in New Haven, which is a very poor city, kind of similar to Camden in this area, with a big university and a very
poor neighborhood around it.
Right. So I was able to actually see that I could use that scientific method of trying to actually say, is this work? Does this make sense? Can you try something, see that it works or not, and then try it again to actually help people in a more systematic way, or in a way that actually makes some difference? So I took that experience and suddenly decided that, realized that I wanted to help kids and work with kids. And so I actually did an internship in the Caribbean, or a externship is called when you're a med student, and actually worked down in a hospital in Trinidad, and was really kind of on the front line, and was really working like a doctor, even though I was a med student. I think they didn't really recognize in the British system an extern is a doctor.
Oh, okay.
So I got some tremendous experience, and I didn't disabuse them of that belief. And so, but I realized that kids are great.
Mm-hmm. And how did you come to Philadelphia?
My future wife, of course, like all great Philadelphians, you follow a woman. And so I met her that Duke year at a conference. We didn't change the world at that conference, but
change your world
right.
a little bit.
My daughter should be named the Coalition Against Racism, because that's what that's the conference that brought us together. Right.
So she settled in Philadelphia and you came here?
Right. So that also was halfway between my family, in D.C. and New York and Newark, and so I came to Philadelphia and did an internship and residency at Children's Hospital.
Okay. And then now that you've settled your roots, you're now a doctor, you have this passion for politics, you have this passion for people, you're working as a pediatrician. How does that take you to Physicians for Social Responsibility, and what happens?
I think that's the balance in life. You really have to figure out, can I do this thing that I love, which is understanding science, and can I do this thing that I love, which is trying to help people make their lives better? And can those things come together? And most doctors, want to help individuals, save each patient. And of course, I love to do that. And
so if I'm coming to you, I don't have to worry that I'm going to get care.
And in fact, what I was really taught was that if you're going to be working directly with people, because what I do is primary care. I'm a primary care pediatrician, seeing babies in the office, up to 18, and just taking care of folks in the office. But most of my colleagues that would come from the Ivy League go into surgical subspecialties, and they're specializing in one piece of the liver or a part of the pancreas or some part of an organ. And I really wanted to specialize in people. And so what I found is that in my daily practice, you know, I've worked in community health centers. I worked at Temple as faculty for 6 years. That's where we first interacted.
Right. We were doing anti-violence work, anti-handgun
with
violence
PSR.
work.
And what drew me to an organization like Physicians for Social Responsibility is that you can't work to help people alone. And you can't just do it as part of your job. It needs to be a passion. You have to be able to work with people who are passionate about helping.
And obviously you're passionate about this from a medical perspective.
I am.
And that, I think, is a unique piece. Do all doctors get involved in these kind of social concerns?
The dedication to master that subject pulls you away from that big picture, you know, saying, well, you know, these people are dying, I need to help each person. And what I was seeing in the emergency room and when my patients were coming back, you know, is this kid gets shot in this altercation. This kid is in this fight and gets stabbed. And mainly this kid gets shot, this kid gets shot, this kid gets shot. And what I recognize from, you know, having worked in that politics is that my goal wasn't to be a politician. That is there's a lot of mud. And in science, you know, we like the lab. We like sterile.
It's a little cleaner, more sterile world.
And there's a lot of mud in politics. And it's hard to do science in the mud. But on the other hand, you have to be able to look upstream and say, why are these kids dying? Why are these kids getting into fights? How did this kid get this high-powered police gun? He didn't get it from the cops. He got it from the street, from some guy who bought 50 of them.
I want to come back to PSR because you're on their board. And I know nationally, PSR, internationally, Physicians for Social Responsibility's main focus has been anti-nukes. But in Philadelphia, because of the work of people like Dr. Chinitz, it really has been focused on interpersonal violence. Can we, using a medical model, make a difference in violence?
Yeah, you know, when Physicians for Social Responsibility, which got a Nobel Prize back in the 70s and 80s for its work with recognizing that these nuclear bombs are so dangerous and so devastating that we can't try to medically save the future victims of nuclear war. We have to prevent it. You have to, you know, some of these things are so big that you can't think that you're going to come in your white coat and treat the victims. You have to prevent it and prevent it from happening. What we recognized in Philly is that our war was a one-on-one war of interpersonal violence. People getting into beefs with each other, people not having educational opportunities and commitment, and then because they don't have the skills, going into illegal trade that's enforced with guns. And then those neighborhoods around folks who are choose a path of conflict, struggling with fear, with should I get a gun? Should I arm myself? And this is no different than any other epidemic. You have an outbreak of a vector, you know, what we would think of like, say, malaria. In this case, illegal guns. And you have a vulnerable population, you know, so a group that can catch malaria. In this case, a group that is poor and afraid. And then you have the decrease of resistance. You know, the police weren't there. They aren't patrolling. If the way they're patrolling is alienating the community. That's no different than, you know, not having the anti-malaria drugs. And finally, that combusts, it spreads. So when one kid decides to bring a gun, we don't see so much kids bring guns to school, but there sure are guns on the corner and in the neighborhood. But when I was dealing with this, it was one kid brings a gun to school, and then the other kids feel like, I can't win this fight, this fist fight anymore. I need to arm, and it escalates. And that is exactly the same way that an infectious disease spreads. And in fact, the numbers are similar. When you see the risks for a young brown male under 25 or 30 in a place like Philadelphia or Newark or New Haven or LA or Tennessee, Nashville or Atlanta, the risk to those particular males are as great as a soldier in Afghanistan, the risk of death by gunfire. And in fact, their chance of death is equally as high. So you can imagine if you are an individual faced with that kind of risk, you may adopt the same strategies that somebody in a war would adopt, which is to find a weapon. And whether this is conflict in the Congo, or whether it is just conflict in one section of Kensington, one police district in Mantua, or Southwest Philadelphia, those few dozen or 100 men are in a war. That's what they feel. Now they may not think of it as a war, but that's how they're responding.
It's so interesting that as a scientist looking at this, you can make the comparison between a disease epidemic and a violence epidemic that we're seeing. Yeah. Are the solutions the same? I mean, as a medical doctor, we go in with treatment, we go in with medicine, we go in with different kinds of triage, I guess, to try to make it better. What do we do with violence?
Yeah, well, so there's some great docs all around the city that we've worked with. Was part of what the advantage of Physicians for Social Responsibility is that we're not part of one institution. We're not Penn faculty or Temple faculty or Drexel faculty or community college faculty. We're across the city, across the area, and really across the nation. But what we can do is try to look and draw on best practices. That's what we do in medicine. We say best way to treat an ear infection is antibiotics. We know we won't use leeches. We'll use something that we actually see work. With violence, you have to say the same thing. Can you lock up everybody? No. You know, we used to do that in medicine. It's called quarantine. You lock up the people who are sick until they die or it goes away, and then you let everybody come back out. The problem is it shuts down the community. It disrupts families, and it tends to make people run away and hide. And we find the same thing. You have to engage. You have to engage with people, with communities. It's only a few people who are vulnerable. In this case, violence, the aggressor is the problem until he victimizes someone and they decide to become aggressive rather than being the victim. Now, he's an aggressor too. And now the person who doesn't want to be victimized decides to be aggressive. No different from the influenza spread. One person's sick, the other person is scared, they get sick, and it spreads. But it ends up when you do things, and what we've tried to do, we've worked intensively with bullying prevention. We really looked at a model that was able to not just try to change one kid, grab the bully and shake him up and tell him not to do it. We were able to look and say, can you actually help a whole school change their culture? Can you get the cafeteria worker and the guard and the kids and the parents and the principal to all agree that you gotta stop the situation. You can't bystand. That's what we found out was the great danger with bullying. It's the bystanders. It's not the bully. It's not the victim. You can't. When I was a kid, I should have been a victim, but I chose to run instead of confronting bullies, and bullies they didn't catch me. So you can't say make the victim stronger, make the bully nicer. You gotta say bullying is not allowed in this school, and
make the community
make everybody
the problem solver.
We're not going to let you do that to this kid. We're not going to let you be scared. And we did this, and that model was disseminated throughout the school district. And then PSR is like a midwife. We like to help deliver the baby, the idea, and help it grow. and then let it go.
And then the bullying, and the school district has embraced the bullying. Resources are always
Yeah,
tricky.
and it's through the school. So now the school runs it, and you know, things change. And what we are looking at now, when we're looking at violence, is we focus a lot, and we in Philadelphia always on youth violence. It's tough, you know. Old folks are set in their ways, and if you have really been making a lot of mistakes, it's hard to change. We don't. It's not that we don't try to help. We do, but a lot of times it's the police and probation system that is helping change folks who are set. What we believe, though, is that kids don't have to take that solution of adopting violence. Guess what? Philadelphians love fighting. Rocky, great movie about fights.
We have a statue
you
we're working on for
right.
Joe Frazier. So
Right. When you tell Philadelphians don't fight because it might lead to gunfire, they don't think so. Guess what? Nobody else on the East Coast does either, or the West Coast or the Midwest. So how do we try to help kids who are trying to deal with conflict and mediate conflict and not choose violence, when their parents, in fact, kind of like to encourage Johnny to fight back if he's been punched and to
right, they're encouraging that rather than running away and losing face.
Yeah,
and
you
not
know.
standing
Now
up.
my dad didn't say run. He said my dad didn't say run. He said I was called Billy. I'm Dr. King now. If you stand and fight, you could win, but you will be hurt. Just keep that in mind. And we were out in we did a lot of fishing, and we're out in nature, and you know, dealing with worrying about dangerous animals. So when I saw a fight, I looked at it like it was a bear, and I said, why would I tangle with a bear? Why would I tangle with this kid who's like not listening to me and wants to just rip me to pieces? I think I could do something. I'm going to pick up something sharp and stab him in his eyeball because I'm scared. That was my plan if I got in a fight. But many kids have that kind of plan. Just react with fear and try to be tough so people won't hurt you. What we think kids can do and are doing is teaching themselves. So we have a program that we've been really working on, which is trying to help kids who have been in conflicts mediate that conflict, called Youth Court. We find that young people find a solution that is just, that is fair, and that saves face, you know, in that Asian way, saving face. Better than a principal, better than me in the office, better than a judge sometimes. The reason it's better is because there's agreement. They agreed. So this youth mediation is a program we're trying to really say, this is a great thing. It should be done all across Philly.
So that's the new thing you're midwiving. This
Yeah,
is your
well,
new baby.
I mean, it's not our baby. In this case, we adopt babies. And this idea has been all around. There's places like Chester that are doing great work with it, and we're trying to learn from them. And every year we have kind of a party where we come together to try to let folks who are working on this violence reduction, in this violence reduction community, get together. You know, the docs and the cops and the soldiers and the police, the nurses, the lawyers, all these folks who deal with violence every day, to come to commemorate victims of violence with a 5K. This 5K we have is called Legs Against Arms.
And this is an annual spring event. I think you've had 6 of them.
Right.
You'll be
so
having
this
your
is,
7th in
lucky
the
number
spring
7,
of 2013.
Right. Lucky number 7. The first one was in the midst of a nor'easter that almost collapsed the tents on the Man Plateau. But this year, as it has been in many years, April 28th, it is going to be at St. Joe's. And we have it at St. Joe's, one, because they're a great school, and 2, because it's close to both the city and the surrounding community, the surrounding counties. And this is an opportunity where all of us can come together to learn about how to deal with violence. And this year, which is on April 28th, the program that we're actually having is going to be a program where we have a peace workshop. So we're really going to try to learn from each other. We're going to try to learn from some soldiers, some military, about, guess what, they've been not just fighting a war, but trying to end a war by mediating. If there's anybody who knows how to mediate and decrease violence, it is our American soldiers right now. And these unequal wars, they're not just bombing people. They have to get these sides to put down their weapons. And so we're trying to learn from them, because some of our inner cities are like war zones. And some of our kids in the suburbs feel like they have their own private little war. And so we're hoping to learn from them. We're hoping to learn from youth about how do we mediate, because maybe some of we adults can learn how to mediate some conflicts without remembering the Rocky movies. And we also hope to learn how to, we have a large component of PSR that works with the environment. Mm-hmm. Because what we as docs recognize, we've always recognized, is that we can't just focus on our individual problems. We have to say, there are threats to the planet. And not just to, we don't try in Philly to save the planet. We just try to save our own little piece of the ground. And so can we learn how to apply those concepts of making peace to making peace with the ground? Do we have to beat it up? Do we have to drill so recklessly? Do we have to dig so crazily? Really turn the mountain over and dump it in the valley? Can't you dig a hole? Can you make a change? And so we're hoping to take this Legs Against Arms and use it to to really learn from each other on April 28th.
So this will be a health event, both in the health of the running and in the learning that will be going on. And it will feature doctors and other health professionals, as well as a range of students from
all across the city. So this is, PSR was a student-led organization back in the 70s, 60s. And it was med students who actually said, we need to do this. So we have five medical student chapters. And but we are not a medical student physician only organization. Just like Doctors Without Borders, it is physicians initially who are trying to bring these public health approaches to reducing problems, but it is open to everyone.
And anyone in our community, whether they're students at CCP or people in the community, are welcome to join you in that.
Yeah,
is that what you're
we
saying?
hope to run and walk. April 28th, we'll be reaching out to universities across the city. We hope we have undergrads that make teams. We have medical centers that make teams, and we have large teams. One team prior commemorates a physician lost in Afghanistan and Iraq. And Team Trish commemorates a woman who was killed in a needless, violent crime. And we have large groups that come to commemorate their families lost. And as somebody who works with families, we really use that to remember them, but then to say, from that memory of this person lost, we can make changes.
That's fantastic. Well, thank you so much for being with us. That's all the time we have for today. I want to thank my guest, Dr. William King, for joining us, and I want to thank all of you watching for tuning in. You have been watching the Fox Rothschild Center for Law and Society's Perspective series on CCP TV, the educational channel of the Community College of Philadelphia. I'm David Trevaskis, adjunct professor in the Paralegal Studies program. For more information, please contact us at the Community College. See you next time on CCP TV.